So good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
That's better.
That's better.
Welcome. This is the ninth, I think the ninth of 10 annual workshops. One of these comes off, I think. Maybe. Better? If I speak very quietly? Okay. This is the annual workshop for the Center of Environmental Sensing and Modeling. It's very nice to see all of you here today. It's always a great pleasure to bring our community together. This year, we welcome, in particular, our Scientific Advisory Board, who are here, I suppose, on their free time today, joining us for the workshop, but they're here to review progress on the center over the next 2 days, as many of you are aware. This group was chaired by John Farrington, who is, I think, still at UMass Dartmouth? No, he says. I think he's emeritus. Jim Bellingham, head of robotics at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. I saw Wolfgang Kinzelbach. New to the committee, Marilyn Anderson from EPFL, who's head of ENAC at EPFL in Switzerland. And I didn't see Taiken Oki-san. Oh. So this is the group from the University of Tokyo. So particular welcome to the Scientific Advisory Board, who are going to have busy days the next 2 days. So enjoy the relaxation today. As we do always on these occasions, we start out by sort of acknowledging, first of all, where we are. We're here essentially as guests of the National Research Foundation. We're part of this adventure, this Create Campus. And I know that most of you have seen these slides before, but for those who are new visiting here, the Create Campus is an experimental educational research experiment, I suppose, from the Singaporean government, bringing in lots of international universities to do research in Singapore. This is their grand master chart of where everyone sits in this. You'll recognize, I've lost count, I'm sorry, a lot of international universities in there. SMART, as you'll see, is the Singapore-MIT Alliance for Research and Technology, which was one of the, one of the big box stores in this campus. There are 5 programs essentially under Create that are involving MIT. You'll see that we're in the upper right quadrant, in the positive quadrant under environmental systems, along with a group which is called NEW, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and a group called E2S2, I guess, is also in that group. So there's lots of different universities here. The MIT involvement began in 2007, and it was the first big research activity done by MIT outside of the US, and it's, as I understand, still the largest international research program outside of MIT. I think the objectives are very clear. I don't want to repeat them off the slide, but you'll see the overall goals of SMART and the 5 centers involved. The Center for Environmental Sensing and Modeling was one of the first centers established, and as I noted on the first slide, we're in our 9th year now. The goal is to see how to deal with pervasive sensing as a new paradigm for monitoring, control of natural and infrastructure systems affecting the environment. And the idea was to demonstrate a lot of this new technology of pervasive sensing in the context of the urban environment in Singapore, to understand how Singapore's environment functions. The work here is initiated largely by MIT faculty, but is entirely done really in research partnerships with our faculty colleagues at Nanyang University, at NUS, and increasingly at SUTD. We have a permanent research staff here, and we have a lot of joint supervision of students. The scope of our activities has evolved over time. We put together these giant mosaic charts, which NRF thinks is helpful. We've covered them up so you can see the words that are relevant here. The work we're doing in Sensum these days is really under 3 main strands. One is in climate, and the climate work is driven by trying to relate global and regional climate change, try and predict how climate change is affecting the maritime continent and the area around Singapore, and to understand how land use changes and paleoclimate play into this. On the urban side, we're interested in urban atmospheric conditions. We're interested in urban water quality and urban infrastructures. And on the marine side, Singapore being an island, we're very interested in sensing and modeling in the nearshore environment, and we've done a lot of work on coastal studies of waves, currents, and sediments. Those are the main themes. We work also, from the research partners, we work with agencies in Singapore. We have long-standing connections with two particular agencies, with the National Environment Agency, NEA. We've had a sort of bracketing memorandum of understanding for about 6 years. They're interested in urban climate, transboundary pollution, and so on. And we've worked quite closely over the years with their regional climate modeling group. We've worked closely with PUB on monitoring water distribution systems and looking at contaminants and reservoirs around Singapore. I am the person working with LTA, which is the Land Transport Authority, and then the list keeps going. There's a lot of agencies in Singapore we're engaged in. The research community itself keeps growing. I should say, for those of you who doubt that there are half faculty, this is distributed by the amount of time they're spending in Singapore. You can see that the primary group of people are the group in the yellow block, are the research staff permanently here at SMART. As time goes by, our faculty participation from MIT also evolves. We're very, very happy this year to have another new colleague joining us. I think John Leonhard must be here somewhere, up there. John is a professor of mechanical engineering and an expert in all things thermodynamics and heat transfer. He's also an expert on desalination and is MIT's point person on water and food security. In fact, he's the J. Woffs professor at MIT, when he was the director of the J. Woffs Center, which is water and food security. So we're delighted to welcome him as an associate PI this year. I'm going to move very quickly on to the program here. I should begin by, first of all, acknowledging the program today. We get this research staff to organize the program. Today's program is not following the conventional lines of what we often do at these workshops by each of the three strand areas. We're actually going to talk about, in the first session, accomplishments of CENSAM. We're going to see this through the lens of two different groups of people. One group, the people who have been working on research projects over an extended period of time. We particularly wanted to highlight work done by Charles Harvey and his peatland research, which is based, the field work is in Brunei primarily, and the work of the WAVES lab, which deals a lot with the autonomous vehicles for marine exploration. And that's under Nick Patricoulakis. So we're going to have presentations reviewing a lot of their work and accomplishments. Then there's another group of people that we're going to have presentations from who were funded under seed grants given out internally through a competitive process within CENSAM. These are our research staff proposing independent lines of research, leveraging on work we're doing at CENSAM and adding to it, essentially their first step towards doing funded research. And we have 4 different presentations, I think, in this first session from that group of people. All of these represent outcomes of 1 year of seed funding. So you'll see an interesting selection of work there. The second session this morning is going to look at innovations. And we've invited Howard Califano here. Howard runs SMART's Innovation Center across the whole of SMART and for the whole of Singapore, looking at how to nurture companies coming out of academic research. And then you're going to hear from different groups of people involved in translational research. You're going to hear from Amy Price of Vicenti, a company which was founded a few years ago, and you'll hear where they've progressed to. You'll hear from a couple of researchers, Kelvin Ng and AJ Kotapalli, who are involved in translational research at the moment, and you'll hear from Jianmin Miao, who's doing a lot of work which is commercializable, if you like. So we'll look primarily at the innovation and the translational research in this session. In the afternoon, the session is called Visions, and the Visions work, we've invited a couple of speakers. We've invited one particular speaker from CELSI that's working on a program, a sort of sister program to CENSAM, looking at the air microbiome. This is a group out of CELSI at NTU. We've also invited our friend Leong Shiyui from TMSI to tell us about the work that's also initiated from partnerships at CENSAM, looking at climate crop coupling in Southeast Asia, particularly on the rice crop in Vietnam. And then you'll hear from the 3 faculty of MIT who have joined the program in the last few years. You'll hear from Stephen Barrett, from Dick Yu, and from John Leonhard. So that's the afternoon session. After tea, the last session, we decided we would change the format a bit, and we're going to have a panel discussion looking at how you mitigate or control urban heat in Singapore. If, like me, you walked around this morning, you'll know how humid it is out there this morning. So there's a lot of interest in trying to reduce the wet bulb temperature in Singapore, say. And this is going to be chaired by my colleague Les Norford, and we've got participation from several faculty at NUS and from other CREATE groups, including the ETH, Future Cities Lab, and the Cambridge Cares Group. So that should be a very interesting session to end the day. So hopefully it's a varied and interesting program and give you a perspective on all the different things that are going on at SenSam at the moment. I managed to say at the beginning this workshop was put together by a committee. I should acknowledge the committee, of course. So it was Benjamin Grandy, Adrian Lai, Negan Nazarian, Yoon Sung Im. Did I miss anybody? And Vera, who has, of course, arranged everything for today. So with that, that's my introduction. I don't know if there's any immediate question for the day. I'd like to welcome also, I see in our audience, NRF. Hyang Wee Lim is over here from NRF. So we're very delighted they've come along today. Okay, so we're going to begin this morning. We're going to begin with a review of the PEAT project by Charlie Harvey.